Thank you, and thank you for such a kind introduction. And as a campaigner, I'm inspired by all the Leadership Academy do. They make me want to be a better campaigner. It's an absolute honour to be in a room full of people who got up yesterday to care for people, who got up again today, who can get back up again tomorrow. I think you're remarkable and you're courageous, and I celebrate every one of you tonight for doing that. But I'm going to try and tell you in the next 15 minutes why I feel it's important and why it's important we celebrate the good stuff. The good stuff absolutely matters. So my name's Thomas Whitelaw, and I was a full-time carer for my kind and beautiful and magnificent mum, Joan. My mum passed away on the 22nd of September 2012, and my mum had vascular dementia. And I cared for my mum at home from 2007 until my mum passed away. I came back to visit my mum in 2007, not because of dementia or to become a carer. I was actually going back to Glasgow for my own reasons. For the 20 years previous to that, I worked in the music industry, and I was getting a bit burnt out and disillusioned and making quite a few mistakes. And that's one of the reasons I was going back to visit my mum. But that's the first place you go to. That's the first place you go to when you're struggling. You go back to your mum or dad if they're still there, because they make it better. And they take time to listen and help you understand the mistakes you may be making and help you back onto the path you may have stumbled from. And I was going back to Glasgow and made a decision to take a 2 or 3 month break and find out people had started to make contact with me to say they were becoming concerned about my mum. And I thought I'll take a couple of months off and find out what people's concerns are and keep a better eye on my mum, even from a distance. But those 2 months became 5 months, became 6 months, and then a year. And my mum was diagnosed with vascular dementia in that year. And within that first year, finding my mum, writing her name on her arm to try and remind her who she was, and finding scraps of paper in her pocket and under her pillow with my name on it to try and remind her who the other person in her own house was. There was 2 of us becoming lost, lonely and scared. And after the 2nd and the 3rd year, as dementia was doing everything in its power to affect my mum's greatness, never to me or in my eyes or in my heart, but absolutely to try and affect her greatness. And becoming isolated from a community that my mum was born in and grew up in and went to school in and got her first job in and fell in love in and brought her children up in. There was 2 of us hurtling towards the crisis of our lives. In fact, for the last of that 3rd year, I'd sit to the end of my bed most mornings and just cry for 5 or 10 minutes thinking, how are we going to make it through today? But I wanted to find out how other people managed. And I started a wee campaign from my bedroom by asking people to write to me and share their experiences, both good or bad. And I started that off with a walk around Scotland. I walked around Scotland for a week. I arranged to meet people at bus stops and train stations and supermarkets to collect their stories. And people started writing to me by the hundreds and the hundreds and the hundreds, and now by the thousands and the thousands and the thousands and the thousands. From Scotland, from England, from Wales, from North America, from all around the world. And every single letter that I've received is about love. It's about the day 2 people met and set eyes upon each other for the first time and thought, I am going to love you for the rest of my life. It's the love for a husband, a wife, a son, a daughter, all those unique and remarkable stories that every one of us walked through this door with today. But the word love in most letters is outmatched and outnumbered by the word loneliness. The word loneliness appears more often than the words isolation and the words understanding. But the truly remarkable thing about the letters is it's people that change lives. Over above policies and strategies, it's people that make a difference. And no matter what your role is and no matter what you do across this incredible thing we call the NHS, you have the potential and the opportunity to transform the lives and the experiences of the people that you care for. What an incredible gift to have. What an incredible part to play, that something in your heart made you wake up one day and think, I'm going to apply to that university, that college, that trust. I want to apply to do that job because I want to make it better for the people who live in our communities and across our society. But that gift that you have becomes the most remarkable and beautiful gift of all when you hand it over to the people that need it the most. When you hand it over to our mums and our dads and our sons and our daughters. That's when the gift you walk through this door with tonight, that you walk through to your job every day with, becomes the most beautiful gift of all. And I think it's absolutely right that we're here to celebrate the people in this room tonight. In the last years and months of my mum's life, we were absolutely struggling and falling apart. And I really didn't know where to go or what to do next. And I woke up one day and just thought, I just can't do this. I don't know how to do it. And I phoned up to try and get some help because I really was struggling to figure out how to get through the day. And the GP told me that he would get a district nurse to come out and see us on the Thursday and give us some tips and advice and make sure my mum and I were okay. And I knew she was coming out on the Thursday, and I thought, I'll get my mum all bathed and ready. I wanted my mum to be beautiful the first time she met this nurse. Because my mum would have been beautiful if she was going to the hospital or the doctors or anywhere. She always wanted to be her best. And while I was bathing my mum, the door went, and it was the district nurse. She'd arrived about 20 minutes early. And I shouted downstairs. I said, I'm holding my mum. We're at the top of the stairs. Can you please come up? And as she came walking up her stairs that day, I cried louder than I have ever cried in my life before. I wanted her to know what it felt like from my heart to feel scared and possibly stupid and lost and alone. And she came walking in her bathroom and at first never said a word. She then wrapped her arms around my shoulder and told me that I was doing a great job of looking after my mum. And I felt better the second she said it. I thought, maybe I can do this, and maybe as a family we just might make it through this. She then said, I'm going to put this in place and that in place, and I'm going to organise a bed that's got a wee button and it moves up and down, and I'm going to do all these things. And 45 minutes later, as she was halfway down her stairs to leave, she turned round and said the most beautiful sentence I ever heard in the 5.5 years of caring for my mum. She said, I'm going to come here every Friday morning at 10 o'clock just to make sure the two of yous are okay. The most beautiful sentence I've heard. That's why every one of you can make a difference every single day. As she came walking up her stairs that day, we were stumbling and hurtling and had nowhere to go. And 45 minutes later, when she walked back down there, we were back on a path. We had somewhere to go, and someone was going to hold our hand and help us along the way. And if I saw that district nurse today, I would cross the street and tell her, thank you for doing that for my mum. And if I saw her again tomorrow, I would cross the street and I would shake her hand and tell her again, thank you for doing that for us. And I have to tell you something about her. She walked out of her house that day without even realising what she had just done. Because she was just being a great nurse. Because that's what you do, isn't it? That's what great nurses do, great doctors, great finance teams, great care assistants, great porters, great people do. We meet people when we're at the most vulnerable, and one way or another we put a hand on their shoulders and we help them understand. And we might not always say thank you. You might walk away from our bedsides or out our front doors or even off the phone, and we're forgotten to say thank you because maybe our hearts are breaking.